Hello, friends, family, and everybody else tuning in. You are listening to Knowing Stuff is Tight. Today's episode is about the first female Vice President, Kamala Harris.
When I think of the future, I think of the friends and machines and friends and ideas and philosophy and spirit.
Kamala Devi Harris is an American politician and attorney, serving as the 49th and current Vice President of the United States. She's the United States' first female Vice President, the highest-ranking female official in U.S. history, and the first African American and Asian American Vice President. All of that first of stuff is going to apply to most of the positions she's held. Not to take away from all that, but repeating that 12 times would be really hard for me, probably harder than it was for her to get into those positions. I do want to say that this kind of representation is important to me and a lot of Americans. I want my mixed-race daughters to know that they can do, say, or be whatever they want, as long as they're not breaking the law, because then hardline attorneys like Kamala would get them thrown right in jail.
They put you in jail right away. No trial, no nothing.
A member of the Democratic Party, she served as the Attorney General of California from 2011 to 2017, and as a United States Senator from California from 2017 to 2021, after which she became Vice President alongside President Joe Biden. As a senator, she advocated for health care reform, federal descheduling of cannabis, a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, the DREAM Act, a ban on assault weapons, and progressive tax reform. She gained a national profile for her pointed questioning of Trump administration officials during Senate hearings. As for her early life and education, she was born in Oakland, California on October 20th, 1964. Her mother, Shyamala Gopalan, arrived in the United States from India in 1958 as a 19-year-old graduate student in nutrition and endocrinology. She received her PhD in 1964, and her work as a biologist significantly advanced breast cancer research. Harris's father, Donald J. Harris, arrived in the United States from British Jamaica in 1961 for graduate study at UC Berkeley, receiving a PhD in economics in 1966. He later became a Stanford University professor emeritus of economics. So Kamala's parents are two accomplished immigrants who both have PhDs. Not bad.
Immigrants, we get the job done.
Along with her younger sister Maya, Harris lived in Berkeley, California, in an area often called the Flatlands, with a significant black population. When Harris began kindergarten, she was bused as part of Berkeley's comprehensive desegregation program to Thousand Oaks Elementary School, a public school in a more prosperous neighborhood which previously had been 95% white, and after the desegregation plan went into effect, became 40% black. As a youth, she attended both Christian churches and Hindu temples. She also visited family in India several times and says she was strongly influenced by her Indian grandfather's progressive views on democracy and women's rights. Her parents divorced when she was 7 years old. She has said that when she and her sister visited their father in Palo Alto on weekends, other children in the neighborhood were not allowed to play with them because they were black. When she was 12, Harris and her sister moved with their mother to Montreal, Quebec. Wanda Kagan, a high school friend of Harris, later told CBC News in 2020 that Harris was her best friend and described how she confided in Harris that she had been molested by her stepfather. She said that Harris told her mother, who then insisted Kagan come to live with them for the remainder of her final year of high school. Kagan said Harris had recently told her that their friendship and playing a role in countering Kagan's exploitation helped form the commitment Harris felt in protecting women and children as a prosecutor. Harris graduated from Howard University in Washington, D.C. in 1986 with a degree in political science and economics. She then returned to California to attend law school at the University of California, Hastings College of the Law. She graduated with a Juris Doctor in 1989 and was admitted to the California Bar in June 1990. A little bit about her personal life. She met her husband, entertainment lawyer Doug Emhoff, through a mutual friend who set them up on a blind date in 2013. They married in August 2014. Harris is a stepmother to Emhoff's two children, Cole and Ella, from his previous marriage. As of August 2019, Harris and her husband had an estimated net worth of $5.8 million. Harris is currently a Baptist, holding membership of the Third Baptist Church of San Francisco. Can I get a hallelujah?
Hallelujah!
Harris has also written 2 nonfiction books and 1 children's book. In 2009, she released Smart on Crime, A Career Prosecutor's Plan to Make Us Safer, in which she outlines her vision of how the criminal justice system should function, that it is not enough to simply be tough on crime, and how prosecutors and lawmakers must also be smart and reform-minded in their approach. This book received mixed reviews because her history has shown that she has been very tough on crime, but also has focused more on the Reformation and helping people. In January 2019, she released the children's book entitled Superheroes Are Everywhere. She drew examples from her personal life and taught that superheroes can be found everywhere in real life, from family members to friends to teachers at school and college. Later that same year, she released her memoir, The Truths We Hold, An American Journey, in which she describes herself as a progressive prosecutor. Here's an excerpt of her elaborating on this position. She said, "It is to understand that when a person takes another's life, or a child is molested, or a woman raped, the perpetrators deserve severe consequences. That is one imperative of justice. But it is also to understand that fairness is in short supply in a justice system that is supposed to guarantee it. The job of a progressive prosecutor is to look out for the overlooked, to speak up for those whose voices aren't being heard, to see and address the causes of crime, not just their consequences, and to shine a light on the inequality and unfairness that lead to injustice. It is to recognize that not everyone needs punishment, that what many need, quite plainly, is help." Her career as an attorney started in 1990 in Alameda County, California, where she filled numerous legal roles such as Deputy District Attorney, Assistant District Attorney, and Chief of the Career Criminal Division. In the latter position, she prosecuted homicide, burglary, robbery, and sexual assault cases. Under Harris, the DA's office obtained more than 1,900 convictions for marijuana offenses. Her marijuana-related prosecutions were higher than her predecessor, but the number of defendants given jail time was substantially lower. Prosecutions for low-level marijuana offenses were rare under Harris, and her office had a policy of not pursuing jail time for marijuana possession offenses. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Did she ever smoke? Oh, yeah, and she inhaled, too.
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay. Like in
And
college,
I inhale. I did inhale.
Okay.
It was a long time ago.
What does Kamala Harris listen to?
What were you
What's your
listening to
favorite-
when you was high? What was on? What song was
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, definitely Snoop. Tupac for
Tupac.
sure. For
What do you
sure. Listen, I think that it gives a lot of people joy, and we need more joy.
People enjoying this world.
Ain't that the truth? Harris's successor has expunged all San Francisco marijuana offenses going back to 1975. In response to the early 2000s higher-than-average homicide rate in San Francisco, Harris pushed for higher bail for criminal defendants involved in gun-related crimes. She argued that the historically low bail encouraged outsiders to commit crimes in San Francisco. She also increased the penalties of possession and use of assault weapons. In 2007, Harris also supported legislation to ban gun shows at an arena on the border of San Francisco, contending that these shows were directly contributing to the proliferation of illegal guns and high homicide rates in San Francisco. Harris also created a hate crimes unit to the benefit of LGBT children and teens in schools. In 2006, Gwen Araujo, a 17-year-old American Latina transgender teenager, was murdered by two men who later used what's called the gay panic defense. This was a legal strategy in which a defendant claims they acted in a state of violent, temporary insanity, committing assault or murder because of unwanted same-sex sexual advances. There's a little peek into the unfortunate but all too typical experience of someone in the transgender community. Harris convened a conference of at least 200 prosecutors and law enforcement officials nationwide to discuss how to counter these types of defenses. Out of this conference came the Gwen Araujo Justice for Victims Act, which advocated for juries to ignore bias, sympathy, prejudice, or public opinion in making their own decision. The act also required district attorneys' offices to educate prosecutors about panic strategies and how to prevent bias from affecting trial outcomes. Later that year, Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger signed this act into law. Harris has said life imprisonment without parole is a better and more cost-effective punishment than the death penalty, and has estimated that the resultant cost savings could pay for 1,000 additional police officers in San Francisco alone. She has pledged to never use the death penalty, and to this day she has not. A 2004 poll showed this position was supported by 70% of San Francisco voters. In 2004, with the help of civil rights activist Latifah Simon, Harris created the San Francisco Reentry Division. This division created a program called the Back on Track Initiative for first-time nonviolent offenders aged 18 to 30. This program included requirements of community service, getting a high school equivalent diploma, maintaining employment, taking parenting classes, and passing drug tests. The 200 people that graduated from this program had a recidivism rate of less than 10%. As a comparison, the rate of California's typical drug offender recidivism rate was normally 53%. The success of this program led to the state of California enacting a similar program in 2009, with other cities like Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Atlanta eventually doing the same. In 2006, San Francisco's elementary schools were seeing chronic truancy of almost 3,000 students. Harris pointed out that the majority of prison inmates and homicide victims were either school dropouts or habitual truants, and sent out a letter to thousands of parents warning them of the legal consequences of truancy. One of our most controversial moves here was threatening parents with up to a year in jail and a $2,500 fine. Despite the controversy, her tactics actually worked. 3 years later, the number of truant students went from 3,000 down to 1,330, and no parents were jailed. In 2010, Harris ran for Attorney General of California and was sworn in January 2011, becoming the first woman, first African American, and the first South Asian American to hold the office of Attorney General in the state's history. In 2011, Harris announced the creation of the Mortgage Fraud Strike Force in the wake of the 2010 United States foreclosure crisis. That same year, Harris obtained 2 of the largest recoveries in history of California's False Claims Act: $241 million from Quest Diagnostics and $323 million from the SCAN healthcare network over excess state Medicaid and federal Medicare payments. In 2012, Harris obtained better terms in the national mortgage settlement against the nation's 5 largest mortgage servicers: J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and Ally Bank. These mortgage firms were accused of illegally foreclosing on homeowners. After dismissing an initial offer of $2 to $4 billion in relief for Californians, Harris withdrew from negotiations. The offer eventually was increased to $18.4 billion in debt relief and $2 billion in other financial assistance for California homeowners. Way to look out for the little guy. In 2013, Harris helped to introduce the Homeowner Bill of Rights, considered one of the strongest protections nationwide against aggressive foreclosure tactics. She achieved multiple 9-figure settlements for California homeowners under the bill for various types of abuses on the part of the lenders. From 2013 to 15, Harris again secured multiple nine-figure recoveries for California's public employee and teachers' pensions from big banks like Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, and Bank of America. In 2015, she obtained a $1.2 billion judgment against for-profit post-secondary education company Corinthian Colleges for false advertising and deceptive marketing targeting vulnerable low-income students and misrepresenting job placement rates. That same year, Harris also secured a $60 million settlement with JP Morgan Chase to resolve allegations of illegal debt collection.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
In February 2012, Harris announced an agreement with Apple, Amazon, Google, Hewlett-Packard, Microsoft, Facebook, and BlackBerry Limited to maintain that apps sold in their stores display prominent privacy policies informing users of what private information they were sharing and with whom. In 2015, she secured two settlements with Comcast, one totaling $59 million over allegations that it posted online personal information of tens of thousands of customers, and that it discarded paper records without first omitting private customer information. In November 2013, Harris launched a similar Back on Track program to the one she established back in 2004, but this time at a much larger scale. Once again, this program provided education and job training services to inmates convicted for nonviolent, non-sexual offenses. In 2011, the Supreme Court determined California's prisons to be so overcrowded that they inflicted cruel and unusual punishment, and Harris fought against this type of federal supervision. This is another one of her more controversial stances. Law professor Lara Bazelon contends Harris, quote, weaponized technicalities to keep wrongfully convicted people behind bars rather than allow them new trials. This included withholding DNA testing and other evidence that could have exonerated criminals on death row. At the time, Harris declined to take any position on criminal sentencing reform initiatives. Later in 2014, some of Harris's attorneys argued against the early release of prisoners so they could be used as firefighters. For a little context, inmates had the option of volunteering to receive firefighting training in exchange for sentence reductions and more comfortable prison accommodations. The thing is, these prison firefighters received about $2 a day and another $1 when battling fires. This sounds to me like slavery with benefits. Harris said these attorneys acted without her knowledge, though. Now, in 2008, Harris opposed Prop 8, which was a state constitutional amendment providing that only marriages between a man and a woman are valid. Harris argued this ban was unconstitutional and in June 2013 delivered a speech in Los Angeles urging the Supreme Court to lift the stay banning same-sex marriages as soon as possible, and that happened 2 days later. In 2014, she co-sponsored legislation to ban the gay and trans panic defense in court. It passed, making California the first state with such legislation. Throughout her career, Harris secured multiple multi-million-dollar cases against oil companies like Chevron, BP, and Phillips 66 in relation to oil spills, poor pipeline maintenance, and failure to monitor hazardous materials. In 2015, Harris introduced a police training initiative designed to help law enforcement officers overcome barriers to neutral policing and rebuild trust between law enforcement and the community. This required police officers to wear body cameras and to collect, report, and publish expanded statistics on how many people are shot, seriously injured, or killed by peace officers throughout the state. In 2016, Harris announced an investigation into purported civil rights violations and the use of excessive force by the two largest law enforcement agencies in Kern County, California. Labeled the, quote, deadliest police departments in America, in a 5-part Guardian expose, a separate investigation commissioned by the ACLU and submitted to the California Department of Justice corroborated reports of police using excessive force. In 2011, Harris created the E-Crime Unit within the California Department of Justice, specifically targeting technology crimes like cyberstalking, identity theft, hijacking of social media accounts, and human trafficking. She also worked extensively with the Attorney General of Mexico to help combat human trafficking and the Mexican drug cartels. In 2016, Harris announced her candidacy for U.S. Senate. She won the seat in November that year and promised to protect immigrants from the policies of President-elect Donald Trump, and announced her intention to remain Attorney General through the end of 2016. On January 28, 2017, after Trump signed Executive Order 13769,
the time has come. Execute Order
13769, which barred citizens from several Muslim-majority countries from entering the U.S. for 90 days, she condemned the order and was one of many to describe it as a Muslim ban. In February, Harris spoke in opposition to Trump's cabinet pick for United States Attorney General Jeff Sessions. In early March, she called on Sessions to resign after it was reported that he spoke twice with the Russian ambassador to the United States. In June, Harris garnered media attention for her questioning of Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, over the role he played in the May 2017 firing of James Comey, the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The nature of her questioning caused Senator John McCain and Senator Richard Burr to interrupt her and request that she be more respectful of the witness. A week later, she questioned Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, on the same topic. Sessions said her questioning, quote, "makes me nervous."
Did you have any communication with any Russian businessmen or any Russian nationals?
I don't believe I had any conversation with Russian businessmen or Russian nationals.
Are you aware of
Although
any communications?
a lot of people were at the convention, it's conceivable that somebody
Sir,
came
I
up to me.
have just a few.
Well, you let me qualify it. If I don't qualify it, you'll accuse me of lying. So I need to be correct as best I can.
I do want you to be honest.
And I'm not able to be rushed this fast. It makes me nervous.
Burr's singling out of Harris sparked suggestions in the news media that his behavior was sexist, with commentators arguing that Burr would not treat a male Senate colleague in a similar manner. In December, Harris called for the resignation of Democratic Senator Al Franken, asserting on Twitter, quote, "sexual harassment and misconduct should not be allowed by anyone and should not occur anywhere." In January 2018, Harris questioned Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen for favoring Norwegian immigrants over others and claiming to be unaware that Norway is a predominantly white country.
Norway is a predominantly white country, isn't it?
I actually do not know that, sir, but I imagine that is the case.
When you say you don't know if Norway is predominantly white, when asked by a member of the United States Senate, that causes me concern about your ability to understand the scope of your responsibilities and the impact of your words, much less the policies that you promulgate in that very important department.
In May, Harris heatedly questioned Secretary Nielsen about the Trump administration family separation policy, under which children were separated from their families when the parents were taken into custody for illegally entering the U.S. In June, after visiting one of the detention facilities near the border in San Diego, Harris became the first senator to demand Nielsen's resignation. In the September and October Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court confirmation hearings, Harris questioned Brett Kavanaugh about a meeting he may have had regarding the Mueller investigation with a member of Kasowitz Benson Torres, the law firm founded by the president's personal attorney Mark Kasowitz. Kavanaugh was unable to answer and repeatedly deflected.
So are you saying that with all that you remember, you have an impeccable memory? You've been speaking for almost 8 hours, I think more, with this committee about all sorts of things you remember. Yeah. How can you not remember whether or not you had a conversation about Robert Mueller or his investigation with anyone at that law firm? This investigation has only been going on for so long, sir. So
right,
please
I'm not
answer
sure.
the question.
I'm just trying to think. Do I know anyone who works at that firm? I might know.
That's not my question. My question is, have you had a conversation with anyone at that firm about that investigation? It's a really specific question.
I would like to know the person you're thinking of, because what if there's...
I think you're thinking of someone and you don't want to tell us.
Harris also participated in questioning the FBI director's limited scope of the investigation on Kavanaugh regarding allegations of sexual assault. She voted against his confirmation. In July 2019, Harris urged the Trump administration to investigate Uyghur genocide in China. In November, she called for an investigation into the death of Roxana Hernandez, a transgender woman and immigrant who died in ICE custody. In December, she demanded removal of White House senior advisor Stephen Miller due to his promotion of white nationalist literature to Breitbart website editors. Harris voted in favor of convicting President Trump on charges of abuse of power and obstruction of justice. She also worked on bipartisan bills with Republican co-sponsors for things like bail reform, election security, and workplace harassment. On January 21, 2019, Harris officially announced her candidacy for President of the United States in the 2020 United States presidential election. In the first 24 hours after her candidacy announcement, she tied a record set by Bernie Sanders in 2016 for the most donations raised in the day following an announcement. During the first Democratic presidential debate in June 2019, Harris scolded former Vice President Joe Biden for, quote, hurtful remarks he made, speaking fondly of senators who opposed integration efforts in the 1970s and working with them to oppose mandatory school busing. In the second debate in August, Harris was confronted by Biden and Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard over her record as Attorney General.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. That would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform.
The San Jose Mercury News assessed that some of Gabbard's and Biden's accusations were on point, such as the blocking of the DNA testing of a death row inmate, while others did not stand up to scrutiny. In the immediate aftermath, Harris fell in the polls. At a time when liberals were increasingly concerned about the excesses of the criminal justice system, Harris faced criticism from reformers for tough-on-crime policies she pursued while she was California's Attorney General. For example, in 2014, she decided to defend California's death penalty in court. Hey, she said she wasn't going to do that. On December 3, 2019, Harris withdrew from seeking the 2020 Democratic nomination, citing a shortage of funds. In March 2020, she endorsed Joe Biden for president. In May 2019, senior members of the Congressional Black Caucus endorsed the idea of a Biden-Harris ticket. In late February, Biden won a landslide victory in the 2020 South Carolina Democratic primary, with more victories on Super Tuesday. In early March, Democratic Party official Jim Clyburn suggested Biden choose a black woman as a running mate, commenting that, quote, African-American women needed to be rewarded for their loyalty. Kind of a strange choice of words if you ask me, but whatever. In March, Biden committed to choosing a woman for his running mate. On August 11th, 2020, Biden announced that he had chosen Harris. She was the first African American, the first Indian American, and the third woman to be picked as the vice presidential nominee for a major party ticket. After the major networks called the election for Biden and Harris, Kamala Harris was recorded calling Biden saying,
We did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.
This quote became one of the top 10 tweets of 2020. Harris cast her first of two tie-breaking votes on February 5th, 2021. In February and March, these votes in her role as President of the Senate were crucial in passing the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, a stimulus package proposed by President Biden since no Republicans in the Senate voted for the package. Rude. Well, there you have it. There is our Vice President Kamala Harris. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thanks again for tuning in. And until next time, may the gods and goddesses illuminate your path.
When I think of the future, I think of the friends and machines, and friends and ideas, and philosophy and spirit.